They say you can't choose your family, but you can choose how you let them treat you. I learned that lesson late in life, with burns that were more than skin deep, inflicted not by a stranger, but by hands I had loved and nurtured. It started with a splash, scalding water thrown in a fit of childish rage, but the real injury came from the indifferent eyes of the adults who watched, and the chilling words that followed. "He's just a kid. Accidents happen." Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below, and if you believe family should protect, not exploit each other. Hit that like button and subscribe for more. I had always been the steady one, the anchor for my family. After my husband, Robert, passed away 5 years ago, I was left comfortable, perhaps more comfortable than my daughter Sarah and her husband Mark thought was necessary for a woman my age. My home was paid for, Robert had left a good pension and some investments, and my needs were simple. Sarah and Mark, on the other hand, seemed to exist in a perpetual state of needing just a little bit more. A new car, a bigger house deposit, school trips for my grandson, Ethan. I always helped. That's what mothers do, isn't it? You help your children. You help their children. You build a life where they feel secure knowing you are there. My house, a large, old place Robert and I had poured our lives into, became their convenient stopover, their emergency fund source, their free babysitter. Ethan, my only grandchild, was 13, entering that turbulent phase, but lately, his behavior had escalated from typical teenage angst to something more troubling, disrespectful, demanding, and prone to uncontrolled outbursts. Sarah and Mark waved it away, attributing it to growing pains or stress. I saw a lack of boundaries, a sense of entitlement mirroring their own, but I bit my tongue. They were my family. You navigate the rough patches together. My daughter, Sarah, had always been focused on her needs, her family's needs. Growing up, if her brother got something, she wanted something better. As an adult, this translated into a quiet, persistent pressure. My home was too big for me alone. Was I sure I didn't want to downsize? Free up some capital? The implication was clear, free up capital for them. Mark, my son-in-law, was worse, less subtle. He'd make jokes about when they'd inherit the house, comment on my spending, even question my financial decisions. "You don't need that much accessible cash, Eleanor, just sitting there. Investing it would be smarter. Or, helping us out with the new extension." I overheard them once, sitting in my sunroom, believing I was out in the garden. Mark was talking about my pension payments. "It's a solid income stream, Sarah. More than enough for one person. We just need to make sure she's amenable to helping us out with this business venture. If she puts up the seed money, it's basically risk-free for us," Sarah sighed. "She's stubborn, Mark. And she's getting older. We can't wait forever. What if she decides to give it all to charity?" A chill went down my spine. They weren't discussing how to help me, they were discussing how to access my money, how to manage my decline. I walked in then, pretending I hadn't heard, a knot forming in my stomach. It was the first concrete sign their needs felt more like calculated entitlement. Life continued, a delicate dance around their growing expectations and my quiet unease. They visited often, their demands increasing in frequency and scale. A loan that never got repaid, help with a bill that was forgotten, requests for expensive items for Ethan. I gave, but the joy in giving had been replaced by a weary resignation. I started keeping better records, a habit from my days helping Robert with his business, initially just to keep track, but soon, it felt like I was building a case without knowing who the adversary was. The afternoon everything changed started ordinarily. Sarah, Mark, and Ethan were visiting. Ethan was agitated about something. A video game, a denied request for new trainers, the usual teenage drama. He was in the kitchen, making instant noodles, slamming cupboards. I was sitting at the table reading. Sarah and Mark were in the living room, talking loudly about their financial woes, loud enough for me to hear, a not-so-subtle hint. Ethan needed hot water for his noodles. He filled the kettle, switched it on. The shrill whistle pierced the air. He muttered to himself, something about it not being fair, about people getting everything they want. I looked up from my book, about to suggest he take a breath, maybe talk about what was bothering him. In that instant, his head whipped around. His eyes, usually full of a boyish innocence I adored, were narrowed, blazing with undirected anger. He saw me, saw the kettle of just boiled water in his hand. It wasn't a trip, wasn't a stumble. He deliberately swung his arm, launching the steaming contents directly at me. The shock was immediate, searing. Hot liquid drenched my arm, my chest, my lap. I cried out, scrambling back from the table, knocking my chair over. The pain was intense, sharp, breathtaking. My clothes were soaked, clinging to my skin, the heat unbearable. Sarah and Mark rushed in, not with concern for me, but with panic. "Ethan, what did you do?" Sarah shrieked, grabbing her son. Mark looked at me, then at the spilled water, his expression a mixture of annoyance and worry. Worry, I suspected, about the mess or the potential consequences. It was an accident. Ethan yelled, already tears welling up, not from remorse, but from fear of punishment. I was gasping, pulling at my soaked clothes. The fabric fused to my skin in places. "It burns," I managed to choke out. Sarah knelt by Ethan, hugging him. "Oh, sweetheart, it's okay, Mommy's here." It was just an accident, wasn't it? She glared at me over Ethan's head, a look that was sharp, accusing. "Eleanor, don't make a scene." He didn't mean it. Mark stepped forward, not to help me, but to assess the damage. "It's just water, Mom. Looks like he just got your arm. Let's get you some ice, just water. Boiling water." My skin was blistering before my eyes. The dismissiveness was a second, deeper burn. They minimized the physical harm, instantly protecting the perpetrator, not just their son, but the incident itself, seeking to make it disappear. No mention of a hospital, no frantic offers of help beyond a perfunctory ice pack. Their priority was controlling the narrative, ensuring this accident didn't become a problem for them. Later that evening, after they had left, with minimal fuss, just telling me to put some cream on it, I was alone, trembling. The physical pain was bad, a throbbing reminder of what had happened. But the emotional pain was crushing. My own grandson and his parents had treated me with utter disregard. It wasn't just an accident. It was a manifestation of their lack of respect, their sense that I was there to absorb whatever they dished out, physical or financial. "He's just a kid, no." He was a child without discipline, mirroring the entitled adults who shielded him. And they weren't just neglecting my well-being, they were actively hostile to it if it inconvenienced them. That night, staring at the angry red and white skin on my arm, I made a decision. I had to protect myself. Not just from physical harm, but from the slow, insidious drain on my resources and spirit. The trust was broken, shattered by boiling water and chilling indifference. The next few days were a blur of pain and quiet action. I went to the hospital the next morning. The burns were second degree. The nurses were kind, bandaging me, giving me instructions for care. When they asked how it happened, I hesitated, then simply said a kitchen accident. I wasn't ready to expose my family yet. The nurses gave me documentation, forms to fill out. I kept them. Back home, moving slowly, favoring my injured arm, I started methodically. I pulled out the records I'd been keeping, bank statements showing transfers to Sarah and Mark, emails detailing their requests, dates and amounts of loans never repaid, text messages filled with passive-aggressive hints about my money. I photographed my burns each day as they healed. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but one specializing in elder law and financial protection. I explained the situation, carefully omitting the violence at first, focusing on the financial exploitation, the subtle pressures, the feeling of being seen as a cash machine. Mr. Harrison was a calm, older man with shrewd eyes. He listened patiently, nodding occasionally. "This is unfortunately very common, Eleanor," he said. Family members often feel entitled to an inheritance and try to accelerate the process. Sometimes aggressively, he outlined options: putting assets into a trust, changing my will, setting up power of attorney carefully, cease and desist letters. It felt overwhelming, but empowering. Then, hesitantly, I told him about the incident with Ethan, the boiling water, and Sarah and Mark's reaction. His demeanor shifted. That changes things considerably, Eleanor. That is assault. A minor can be held responsible, and the parents can be held liable for failing to supervise. This isn't just about protecting your finances anymore. It's about your physical safety. This strengthens your position immensely. It demonstrates a pattern of negligence and disregard for your well-being, which could be relevant if they ever tried to contest your decisions regarding your assets, for instance, by claiming you're not competent or under duress. He advised me to file a police report regarding the assault. The thought made me feel sick. Reporting my grandson? My daughter? But Mr. Harrison explained it wasn't necessarily about pressing charges immediately, but about creating an official record, undeniable evidence of the incident. It was another layer of protection, a documented fact countering their potential claims of it being nothing or my being overly dramatic. I agreed. The family noticed the shift, of course. I was less available, didn't answer calls immediately, politely declined requests for help. When Sarah called, asking if I could pay for Ethan's school trip to Europe, "It's educational, Mom. You'd be investing in his future," I simply said, "I'm not able to do that right now, Sarah." The pause on the other end of the line was deafening. "What do you mean, not able?" Her voice was sharp. "You have plenty of money, Mom. Don't be ridiculous." "My finances are my concern, Sarah," I said, keeping my voice level, remembering Mr. Harrison's advice to be firm and factual, avoid emotional arguments. "Is this about the little accident?" she asked, her tone shifting to aggrieved innocence. "Mom, we said we were sorry." Ethan said he was sorry. Ethan had mumbled something looking at his shoes when they left. It was hardly a heartfelt apology for third-degree burns. "Don't tell me you're holding on to that. He's a child." "It's not about holding on to anything, Sarah. It's about deciding how I manage my own life and my own resources. I'm simply not funding the trip." The call ended shortly after that, with Sarah cold and distant. Mark called later, attempting a more reasonable approach, talking about family supporting family, duty, obligation. He even mentioned how much they were doing for me by visiting so often, keeping me company. I listened, noted down the date and time, the specific language he used. It all went into the file I was building. While gathering my financial documents for Mr. Harrison, statements, investment details, property deeds, I came across an old drawer filled with miscellaneous papers. Utility bills from years ago, old warranties, dried flowers, and a stack of forgotten lottery tickets. Robert used to buy them sometimes, just for fun. I never paid much attention. As I sorted through the clutter, intending to throw most of it away, one ticket felt thicker, different. I picked it up. It was from a few months ago. I vaguely remembered Robert buying a batch just before he passed. I had put them away and forgotten. Idly, I checked the numbers online against the drawing date printed on the ticket. My heart stopped. Then it hammered against my ribs. The numbers matched. It was a winner. A very significant winner. Not the life-changing, retire to a private island sum, but a substantial amount. Enough to make my already comfortable situation exceedingly secure. Enough to eliminate any need to rely on anyone ever again. Enough to handle any legal costs, any care I might need, anything at all. I sat down, the ticket trembling in my hand. It felt surreal. Like a gift, or perhaps a tool delivered by fate. I didn't tell Sarah or Mark about the ticket. They hadn't known about it. Robert had bought it quietly. It was mine. Found in my house, bought with my money, technically Robert's, then mine. But the timing felt significant. Just as I was building my defense, just as I was realizing the depth of their entitlement, this appeared. I called Mr. Harrison again, my voice carefully neutral. Mr. Harrison, regarding the discussion about my assets. If I were to come into a sudden, unexpected sum of money, say, from an investment or other source, what steps should I take to ensure that fund is completely protected from any potential claims, particularly from family members? He outlined the procedures, depositing it carefully, setting up a separate account, potentially a separate trust specifically for that fund, ensuring clear documentation of its origin, the lottery ticket. He stressed the importance of absolute discretion until it was legally secured. My plan crystallized. The lottery ticket wasn't just a windfall, it was my leverage, my ultimate shield. Their relentless pursuit of my existing assets, combined with their shocking disregard for my safety, made me certain they would stop at nothing. Revealing the ticket's existence prematurely would turn their veiled entitlement into outright aggression. I needed to secure my position first, legally and financially. I followed Mr. Harrison's advice to the letter. I discreetly claimed the winnings, setting up accounts and legal structures as advised. It took time, required careful planning, and multiple trips to the bank and lawyer's office under the guise of running errands. All the while, Sarah and Mark continued their passive-aggressive campaign, interspersed with periods of cold silence. They clearly sensed they were losing their grip on my resources, and their resentment was palpable. One afternoon, Mark showed up at my door unannounced. He was furious. "Mom, what is going on? Sarah tells me you're suddenly broke? You can't afford Ethan's trip? What did you do with your money?" I opened the door only a crack, standing firmly. "I manage my money, Mark. That's not your concern. It is my concern when you're being irresponsible. Sarah says you met with a lawyer? Are you trying to cut us out?" His voice was rising, accusatory. This was antagonist micro-cameo too, their true intentions laid bare. They didn't care about my well-being. They only cared about their expected inheritance. "I am ensuring my future security," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Something I should have done sooner." "Security?" he scoffed. "We are your security, Mom. Family takes care of family. Unless you plan on living forever, what do you need all that money for? It should be helping your family now." "Get off my property, Mark," I said, my voice firm. "If you have further questions, you can direct them to Mr. Harrison." His face went white. "You wouldn't." "I already have," I replied, and closed the door softly but decisively. That confrontation was the major turning point. They knew I was actively protecting myself, possibly with legal help. Their subtle tactics would escalate. It was time to execute the next phase of my plan. The legal documents were served the following week. Not just a cease and desist regarding financial demands, but notification that a police report had been filed concerning the assault incident, and a restraining order application was being pursued based on the incident and subsequent harassment. My lawyer also included a formal letter stating my financial assets were secured and managed under legal counsel, and any attempts to access or make claims against them would be met with legal action. There was no mention of the lottery ticket yet. That would be the final reveal. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Sarah called, screaming, accusing me of being cruel, heartless, and insane. Mark sent threatening texts, talking about contesting everything, claiming I was senile, fabricating lies. They were blindsided. They had expected me to crumble, to be guilt-tripped or bullied into submission. They had never anticipated documentation, lawyers, and police reports. They certainly hadn't anticipated I would act on the assault. Their panic intensified when the restraining order was temporarily granted, barring them from my property and requiring Ethan to attend counseling. The official recognition of the little accident as assault, with legal consequences, was a shock they couldn't deflect. Their attempts to rally extended family backfired when my lawyer sent key evidence: the photos of my burns, printouts of their financial demands, Mark's threatening texts, to certain relatives they had tried to manipulate. Seeing the undeniable proof, some relatives distanced themselves, others offered quiet support. The final blow came not in court, but through a carefully orchestrated conversation facilitated by Mr. Harrison. Sarah and Mark, through their own lawyer, were trying to negotiate, trying to make the legal issues disappear, undoubtedly hoping to return to their previous pattern of exploitation. Mr. Harrison informed them that while certain matters were non-negotiable, the restraining order, the police report, there was a financial matter that needed addressing, something that had recently come to light regarding my assets. During a mediated discussion with their lawyer, I sat quietly as Mr. Harrison laid out the facts. He spoke about my long history of generosity, the sacrifices I had made, the years of financial support I had provided. He then detailed the escalating demands, the disregard for my safety culminating in the assault, and their subsequent hostile response to my setting boundaries. Finally, he introduced the subject of the lottery ticket. He didn't reveal the exact amount, just that I had recently come into a significant sum of money from a winning ticket I had purchased some time ago and found recently. He explained that this asset, legally and undeniably mine, was now secured in a trust, ensuring my financial independence and future care, something they had clearly not prioritized. He concluded by stating that given their past behavior, their attempts to exploit me, and the documented assault, I had no intention of sharing this newfound wealth, or any of my assets, with them. My will had been updated to reflect this, and any future challenges would be met with the full force of my legal team, presenting all evidence of their conduct, including the assault. The silence on their end was deafening. Their lawyer looked visibly uncomfortable. Sarah gasped. Mark swore loudly. Their regret was palpable. They had been so focused on draining the well they knew about, they had missed the underground spring that was now entirely sealed off to them, the very resource they craved most. Unsecured money, now firmly beyond their grasp, partly because of their own actions. Their entitlement had cost them everything. In the immediate aftermath, there was no grand courtroom drama, just the quiet finalization of legal protections. The restraining order remained in place. The police investigation into the assault continued, a constant threat. My finances were secure. My home was my sanctuary again, no longer a staging ground for their schemes. I was left with quiet peace. The burns healed, leaving faint scars, reminders of a painful lesson. But the deeper wounds, the betrayal and disappointment, were slowly mending. Sarah and Mark faced the consequences of their choices: loss of their primary financial pipeline, legal troubles, damaged reputations, and the permanent severance of our relationship. They had chased money and lost family, not because I was cruel, but because they had shown me, unequivocally, that their greed outweighed any genuine love or respect. My victory wasn't in their downfall, but in reclaiming my safety, my dignity, and my control. I had finally chosen myself. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself.